There's a $2 liquid that restores dead wood to showroom condition. Not hides damage, restores. One coat on bare wood and the grain comes alive like it just left the sawmill. The Chinese used it for over 2,000 years on imperial furniture. In 1939, a German chemist published the complete molecular analysis proving why it works. Then the furniture finishing industry exploded into a $48 billion machine. And that formula disappeared from hardware stores, from woodworking manuals, from your grandfather's workshop. They did not stop selling it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. A liquid you can buy for $2 per quart cannot compete with a $35 can of polyurethane that needs reapplication every 3 years. And what cannot generate repeat purchases cannot be allowed to survive. This is the story of boiled linseed oil, the wood finish that built empires, and the industry that buried it in your local paint aisle. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If you're not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we dig up what the furniture industry buried. The year is 1939, and a German industrial chemist named Hermann Wolff sits inside a laboratory in Hamburg analyzing wood samples from Ming Dynasty furniture, recovered from a merchant ship. The wood is over 400 years old, submerged in seawater for decades, yet the finish is intact. Wolff runs spectroscopic analysis on the coating and discovers something that shakes the entire wood finishing industry. The protective layer is polymerized linseed oil, a compound so simple that any farmer with flax seeds could produce it. He documents everything in a technical paper published in the Journal of Applied Chemistry. The oil penetrates deep into the wood's cellular structure, polymerizes on contact with oxygen, and forms a flexible waterproof membrane that moves with the wood as it expands and contracts. The cost to produce this finish is effectively zero if you grow flax. The durability exceeds any synthetic coating developed in a laboratory. But Hermann Wolff was not the first to know this. He was just the first to put laboratory data behind what humanity already practiced for millennia. Rewind 2,500 years to ancient China. Craftsmen building furniture for the imperial palace discovered that coating wood with pressed flax seed oil made it impervious to water, resistant to insects, and gave it a deep translucent glow that revealed every fiber of the grain. Archaeological samples from the Han Dynasty show linseed oil finishes still intact after 2,000 years. The wood beneath remained structurally sound, protected by a molecular layer thinner than a human hair. In ancient Egypt, workers building furniture for pharaoh tombs used linseed oil mixed with beeswax. When archaeologists opened King's, Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, the wooden chairs and tables looked freshly finished. 300 years in a sealed chamber, and the linseed oil coating had not cracked, peeled, or degraded. Norse shipbuilders in 800 AD soaked oak planks in boiled linseed oil before assembling longships. Those vessels crossed the North Atlantic and survived decades of saltwater exposure. Viking ship remains pulled from Norwegian fjords still show traces of the oil finish protecting the wood underneath. In medieval Europe, every carpenter and furniture maker kept barrels of linseed oil in their workshops. It was the standard finish for tables, chairs, cabinets, and floors across the entire continent for over 1,000 years. Thomas Chippendale, the most famous furniture maker in 18th century England, used linseed oil on every piece that left his workshop. His chairs and desks still exist in museums today, the finish intact after 250 years. This video is just the tip of what they buried. I collected everything the furniture and outdoor industry doesn't want you to know, all inside the complete Forbidden Camping vault. The exact linseed oil formula that European craftsmen guarded for centuries. Fire techniques the military classified as dangerous. Emergency shelter blueprints that cost nothing and outperform $300 tents. The wood restoration method that furniture refinishers charge $500 to perform. Natural rust elimination using acids, the chemical industry tried to erase. The solar water heater energy companies banned from building codes, and much more. Over 10 guides in one vault. No fluff, straight to the point. The link is in the description. But stay right here because the science behind this $2 liquid gets even more disturbing. In 2004, researchers at the Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin published a landmark study on linseed oil penetration in hardwoods. They applied boiled linseed oil to oak, maple, and walnut samples and measured the depth of penetration using electron microscopy. The oil penetrated 3 to 5 millimeters into the wood structure within 24 hours. That is deeper than any modern polyurethane finish, which sits entirely on the surface. Once inside the wood cells, the oil undergoes autoxidation, a chemical process where exposure to oxygen causes the fatty acid chains to cross-link and solidify. The result is a finish that becomes part of the wood itself rather than a coating on top of it. A separate study from the University of Helsinki in 2011 tested linseed oil finishes against moisture damage. Wood samples treated with 3 coats of boiled linseed oil showed 89% resistance to water absorption compared to untreated controls. The The samples were submerged in water for 30 days. The linseed oil finish prevented swelling, prevented warping, and kept the wood dimensionally stable. In 2016, researchers at North Carolina State University compared the longevity of linseed oil versus polyurethane finishes. After 10 years of accelerated UV exposure and temperature cycling, the linseed oil finish showed minimal degradation. The polyurethane coating cracked, yellowed, and began peeling away from the wood surface. The study concluded that linseed oil finishes outlast synthetic alternatives by a factor of 3 to 1 in real-world conditions. Here's the number that should make furniture stores very uncomfortable. A quart of boiled linseed oil costs between $8 and $12 at any hardware store. 1 quart covers approximately 400 square feet of wood surface. That means you can refinish an entire dining table, 6 chairs, and a bookshelf for under $2 in material cost. Compare that to furniture refinishing services that charge $300 to $800 for the same job. Compare it to a quart of polyurethane at $35 that covers only 125 square feet and needs reapplication every 3 to 5 years. The cost difference is not marginal, it is absolute. If you've made it this far, you already know more about wood finishing than 99% of furniture owners who spend hundreds every year on products that peel away in 3 years. Are you still buying cans of synthetic finish when a $2 bottle of linseed oil restores wood permanently? Subscribe and share this with someone who deserves to stop paying furniture stores to do what their garage already has the materials for. And remember, everything the industry buried is inside the complete Forbidden Camping Vault. The link is in the description. Now, stay with me, because what the furniture finishing corporations did next is the part they pray you never discover. The global wood coatings industry generates $48 billion in annual revenue. $48 billion. That number depends on one critical assumption: that you believe wood protection requires products only they can manufacture. Companies like Minwax, Varathane, and Rust Oleum dominate hardware store shelf space with products designed to fail within 5 years. Their entire business model requires repeat customers who believe that wood finishing is too complicated to do with simple oil. A homeowner who discovers that $2 of linseed oil outperforms $35 of polyurethane is a customer permanently lost. Multiply that by 80 million households with wood furniture in the United States alone. That is not a market risk. That is an existential threat to quarterly earnings. In 1947, just 8 years after Herman Wolf published his analysis, the American wood coatings industry formed its first major trade association. By 1955, hardware stores across the country began phasing out pure linseed oil from prominent shelf displays. It was moved to bottom shelves, placed in unmarked containers, or removed entirely in favor of branded synthetic finishes with higher profit margins. University woodworking programs that once taught linseed oil application as standard practice began receiving corporate grants from polyurethane manufacturers. The curriculum shifted within one academic generation. Students entering furniture, making programs in the 1960s, learned that linseed oil was old-fashioned, unreliable, and inferior to modern science. Linseed oil was reclassified in industry literature as a slow-drying, inconvenient product, unsuitable for commercial use. The same finish that protected Viking longships and Ming Dynasty furniture was dismissed as obsolete. The industry response was surgical. They funded consumer reports emphasizing the long drying time of linseed oil without mentioning that the finish lasts 10 times longer than fast-drying alternatives. They promoted polyurethane as advanced technology when it is just petroleum-based plastic that sits on wood surfaces and cracks under stress. They confused the public by selling boiled linseed oil mixed with heavy metal dryers and solvents, then warned about toxicity they themselves added. Every can of furniture, finish you buy, contains petroleum distillates that off-gas for weeks, require ventilation, and need reapplication every few years. Linseed oil is pressed from flax seeds, has no toxic fumes, and once cured, becomes a permanent part of the wood. They take a natural oil that has protected wood for 2,000 years, replace it with plastic resin, and charge you 10 times the price for a product that fails in a fraction of the time. If you've made it this far, you already know more about wood restoration than 99% of furniture refinishers charging $400 per table. Subscribe and share this with someone still paying professionals for what a $2 bottle in 20 minutes accomplishes. Everything the furniture industry buried is in the vault. Link in the description. Now stay with me, because the next part is the one they really don't want you to hear. Here's exactly what you do. Go to any hardware store and buy boiled linseed oil. Not raw linseed oil. Boiled linseed oil. The boiling process polymerizes the oil and adds dryers that reduce cure time from weeks to 24 hours. A quart costs $8 to $12. You also need a pack of lint-free cotton rags or old t-shirts cut into squares. Start with bare wood. If your furniture has an existing finish, you need to remove it first using sandpaper or a chemical stripper. Linseed oil penetrates wood. It does not sit on top of old varnish. Sand the wood with 120 grit sandpaper to open the grain and allow the oil to penetrate deeply. Wipe away all dust with a damp cloth and let the wood dry completely. Pour a small amount of boiled linseed oil into a container. Dip your rag into the oil and apply a thin, even coat across the entire wood surface. Work the oil into the grain using circular motions and moderate pressure. You want the wood to absorb the oil, not sit in puddles on the surface. Let the oil soak in for 15 to 20 minutes. Then, take a clean, dry rag and wipe away any excess oil that has not been absorbed. This step is critical. Any oil left sitting on the surface will become sticky and tacky instead of curing properly. Let the first coat cure for 24 hours in a well-ventilated area. After 24 hours, lightly sand the surface with 220 grit sandpaper to smooth any raised grain. Apply a second coat using the same method. Soak, wait, wipe. Let it cure for another 24 hours. For maximum protection and depth, apply a third coat. 3 coats of boiled linseed oil will give you a finish that lasts decades. For outdoor furniture, apply 4 to 5 coats, and reapply 1 maintenance coat every 2 years. The wood will transform before your eyes. Dead gray weathered wood turns rich and deep. The grain pattern becomes 3-dimensional. The surface develops a soft, glowing finish that feels like silk under your hand. Total material cost for an entire dining set, under $10. Total time invested, about 2 hours spread across 3 days. Compare that to furniture refinishing services at $400 to $800. Compare it to polyurethane finishes that cost $35, require respirators, and peel away in 5 years. I need to be honest with you about limitations. Boiled linseed oil takes 24 hours to cure between coats. If you need a table finished in 2 hours, this is not the method. The finish is not as hard as polyurethane. It will not protect against heavy impacts or sharp objects dragged across the surface. For high-traffic floors and commercial spaces, polyurethane makes sense, but for 95% of furniture in homes, linseed oil outperforms every synthetic alternative. The finish is proven. The chemistry is documented. And every furniture refinisher who charges $500 for the same process knows it works. Think about what you just learned. A 2,000-year-old finish used by Chinese emperors, Egyptian pharaohs, and Viking shipbuilders still outperforms products developed in modern laboratories. Hermann Wolff proved it in 1939 inside that Hamburg laboratory. The chemistry has not changed. The molecular structure of polymerized linseed oil is identical whether it was applied in 200 BC or today. This knowledge did not die. It was buried under $48 billion of corporate revenue, buried under marketing campaigns designed to make you believe that wood finishing requires a chemistry degree and a respirator mask. But linseed oil does not forget. Flax seeds do not expire. And knowledge that protected wooden ships across the Atlantic Ocean will not disappear because a corporation wished it away. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe and share it. Every share preserves what the furniture finishing giants tried to erase from your memory. The next vault opens soon, and what the industry buried this time is even heavier.